Hello everybody, I'm Day Weather Meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this March 1st, 2025. It's being brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated and Ag Risk Advisors. Well, welcome to a new month. Boy, February ended very mild in the West. However, although we will be mild for the first couple of days of the month, it's going to get stormy again. In fact, the pattern which led to a big thaw after the big Arctic outbreak is now going to segue into a more stormy pattern for the Intermountain West, really from the California coast through the desert Southwest, the Northern Rockies and Northern Plains and Central Plains. Coast to coast, there's going to be a lot of weather in March, probably April as well. Therefore, livestock interests, be prepared for colder, stormier, wetter weather. Now, the wet is good. We really need the wet in some areas, and we've got some chances now of finally seeing that. And one reason for that is La Nina is fading fast. The cold waters in the tropical Pacific are easing. And when those colder subtropical waters begin to ease, we tend to see the weather patterns change in the West, not overnight, takes a while. But with those colder water temperatures easing, that should get us into a different configuration with the weather pattern in the West. That's exactly what we're going to see in March, likely through the month of April. Now, in the last week, the heavier moisture has been in the Pacific Northwest. Those areas getting some pretty significant moisture, but boy, you get out further east, very little moisture over the last 7 days here. And of course, the Southern Rockies, the Southwest United States, still very dry. Snowfall in the last 2 weeks, this map shows the last 2 weeks. Well, a lot of this snow, especially right here, a lot of it gone because of the warm up here over the last week or so. But March, April can be two very snowy months, and so the snow's not done, as you'll see here in a moment. But one reason a lot of the snow melted away is the big warm up. This is the 7-day temperature anomaly. Now, the colder weather did settle into the southern parts of the U.S. relative to average, while Canada and the West really had a big warm up, helping to melt that snow and ice away and give us relief from the severe cold of a week ago. As we take a look at what will evolve going forward, low pressure, a small one, will come through Arizona and New Mexico, then head out into the plains Sunday into Monday, producing showers and thunderstorms. This low here is likely going to become a stronger weather maker as it heads east and forms a deeper low in eastern Colorado. Could get some upslope. That's something we haven't had this winter. That could bring the plains some badly needed moisture. It'll come in the form of rain first, then snow. And then colder air from Canada will have access back into the United States again. Now, it's not Arctic air, but it will bring back in some colder air again. That'll be followed by another wave right here that hits the West Coast Wednesday, comes into the Four Corners region by Thursday into Friday. And this is what precipitation looks like over the next week. So we could get some needed moisture right here. That could be in the form of first rain, then snow. More rain and snow for California and the northern Great Basin, a little bit maybe for the southwestern United States as well. When we take a look at beyond this time frame, as we get into the week after, as we get into March 11th, 12th, 13th or so, notice this high pressure ridge building up into the Gulf of Alaska. This is causing the jet stream to want to dip. If so, storms come across the North Pacific. They come up, they come down, then they cut across the United States. This is a stormy pattern as we get into the first 2 weeks of March, and it may go longer than that. Why? Well, the Pacific North American Oscillation, which is a metric to basically have a good idea of how stormy the Pacific Ocean is, the North Pacific in particular. When we go along this line, what we want to pay attention to is this green line, which is basically the average of all the computer models projecting out into the future. When it goes below zero, goes into a negative range here. When we go into negative, this means stormy weather in the Pacific. When it's in a positive phase up here, it's not as stormy. So with the negative phase starting right into the first week of March, it takes it all the way. This is the middle of April right here. That combined with this, the weakening La Nina. See the warmer water temperatures here now? This is a sea surface temperature anomaly chart. So it's warming up here. It's warming up in the Western Pacific. It's still cold in the Central Pacific. But these two areas are warm, especially the one off South America. The trade wind directions are changing. This pushes the warmer water westward, eroding the cold water here. And we see that. In the last 7 days, there's been a big warm up along the equator. This is good news. La Nina is one reason a lot of the western high plains and the southwestern United States has been so dry since really summer, fall of 2024. With La Nina ending and going away right at the end of winter and the beginning of spring, that bodes well. And we can see this another way too. If we take a look at where it's colder right now, that blue patch I showed you right there, that blue patch, this graph represents that blue patch, and see even the blue's getting warmer. That eastern patch off the coast of South America is really warming up since the end of January. So since the end of January, the Pacific, the tropical Pacific's warming up. That should lead, it's kind of like a jolt to the system, adding energy to it, and that's going to get La Nina gone and get us into a more stormy March and April, which is both good and bad. Good, it will bring increased moisture. Bad in the sense we could have some rough spring storms, really coast to coast. The 30-day outlook represents that stormy pattern with colder than average temperatures along and west of the divide. Now, not as cold in the northern and central plains, but along the west coast into the interior, there's a lot of blue here. So this doesn't mean there won't be warm days, but more often than not, they're going to be colder. Between now, the end of March, and precipitation looks pretty good as well, and so does snowfall. Our next update will be the 8th. Have a good week ahead.